Hello, I'm Todd and I wanted to make a short video about the truth to a salt system versus a chlorine pool. One of the most misunderstood things you can have on a pool, and not all that complicated. This is a salt cell that any pool can have. It's an easy conversion. There's nothing different about the actual pool. We install this into the plumbing on the equipment pad, and salt water passes through this. There's titanium plates inside of it that have a low DC charge, and they turn the salt into chlorine. So the end result is we can make chlorine in our backyard. The benefit, I'll go through the pros and cons here. The pros are that it's going to make the right amount of chlorine for us. Once we set the amount of chlorine we want to make, it's by a percentage, normally around 80% or so. We're telling the system that 80% of the time that the pool is on, we want it to actually make the conversion and make chlorine for us. It does require that a certain flow rate of water pass through, so certain motor speeds have to be set for this to work properly. The benefit, the salt system is making the right amount of chlorine, keeping the chlorine levels really accurate. Typically when you manually chlorinate a pool, you'll check the water level. The chlorine level might be really low, and then you'll shock the water and the levels are really high, and that volatility, that makes for the irritating parts of chlorine with itchy skin and so on. The salt content of the water from a salt pool is actually very comfortable on the skin. We naturally have twice as much salt, like you hear from our eyes, than what we would want in the pool. In the pool we want 3,000 parts per million of salt. Typical ocean water is 35,000 parts per million. So if you've been in a salt pool, you know it's not like that ocean water at all. It's quite low in content. So the benefits is we have less maintenance relative to the chlorine level. It stays very accurate, and the water feels nicer on the skin. It does get missold or misunderstood quite often, and that it is a money saver, that you save $200 a year not buying chlorine. That part is true, but if you do the math on the initial cost, and then this cell is actually perishable. The titanium plates inside of it have a lifespan of normally around 4 years. You have the replacement cost of this cell every 4 years. Depending on how you set up the pool and what products you use, that varies a little bit. But in general, the salt system is going to add about $1,200 initially, and then replacing the cell every 4 years is about $950 for that part. The cons to salt, a popular one is the corrosiveness. That the salt is going to chew up the plumbing and motors and all these things, and I don't give any credit to that. If we're keeping our salt at 3,000 parts per million, we're not going to have those problems. The one thing it can do is it can speed up the rate at which your softer stone is going to sand and flake. If you use a sandstone or flagstone that's of a weaker run, it's going to sand and flake regardless, but this certainly will speed up the rate at which that happens. So, simple solution, don't use that type of stone with the salt system if you don't want that concern. When the water is colder than 50 degrees, it can't make the conversion from salt to chlorine. Really important in our Dallas climate, because it'll be cold for a while, there won't be any chlorine left in the pool, and then all of a sudden we have a warm day, and you have to know to go out and tell the system to super chlorinate. You have to hit a button and tell it to make a bunch of chlorine really fast. As long as you know that, then you're okay, no problem. So again, on the con side, we've got the cost, we've got the temperature. It has to be warmer than 50 degrees for it to do its trick, and the corrosiveness to soft stone. So I hope that helps in ballpark, to kind of feel the true pros and cons to it, and helps you decide on what you think is best for you in your own backyard, what's right for you and your family. There are a bunch of other products that you can use to help with the chemistry of the water, and you'll see some other videos that I'll be putting up to help with that, ozonation and UV and some other products. These are things that you can use along with salt or chlorine. These typically aren't things that are going to run solely by themselves. So I'll go into better detail on those with future videos. Thanks a lot.